reported striking nearly 2,000 targets in Iran as part of a massive firepower buildup in the region. Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of US Central Command, said that more than 2,000 munitions have been used, severely degrading Iran's air defenses and destroying hundreds of ballistic missiles, launchers and drones. Cooper described the operation, named Operation Epic Fury, as nearly double the scale of the 2003 Iraq shock and awe strikes. He added that the US and Israeli forces continue to carry out 24/7 strikes across multiple domains, including sea, air and cyberspace. The US has also sunk 17 Iranian ships, including an operational submarine. Let's now listen in to what the US Army Admiral had to say.
More than 50,000 troops, 200 fighters, 2 aircraft carriers, and bombers from the United States are participating in this operation, and more capability is on the way. These forces bring a massive amount of firepower, representing the largest buildup by the U.S. in the Middle East in a generation. In the opening hours of Operation Epic Fury, U.S. Central Command forces, together with Israel, delivered overwhelming and unprecedented strikes into Iran. Many of you may remember the shock and awe strikes of 2003. The first 24 hours of this operation were nearly double the scale, and we continue with 24/7 strikes into Iran from seabed to space and cyberspace. Now, we're less than 100 hours into this operation, and we've already struck nearly 2,000 targets with more than 2,000 munitions. We have severely degraded Iran's air defenses and destroyed hundreds of Iran's ballistic missiles, launchers, and drones. And in simple terms, we're focused on shooting all the things that can shoot at us. We are also sinking the Iranian Navy, the entire Navy. Thus far, we've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including the most operational Iranian submarine that now has a hole in its side. Now, in retaliation, the Iranian regime has launched over 500 ballistic missiles.
Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has stated that the recent US and Israeli actions in the Middle East appear to be inconsistent with international law. Carney clarified that while it is for the US and Israel to justify their actions, he believes the strikes raise legal concerns. He also confirmed that Canada was not informed beforehand and was not asked to participate in the strikes. We're now being joined by Shruti Dasgupta, who's an international affairs analyst, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you, Shruti, for joining us here today on NewsX World. How does Canada's public criticism of the US and Israeli operations framed around international law reflect broader divisions among Western allies over the conduct of the war?
Well, Canada is a key NATO ally for America. They have major trade and they have major tensions been brewing for the past few months between Trump and Carney. They've had a back and forth of rhetoric which does not reflect good diplomatic relations as of now. In such times when it has almost become the rest of the world against Iran kind of a scenario in the Middle East, when Carney comes out and says these words, he's stating the exact position of most of the rational world, where they say that the attack was preemptive, it was not probably necessary, there was a chance of diplomacy to survive, and US acted without consulting any of its allies, any of its friends, any of its partners, strategic partners, and put at risk not just the lives of the people in Iran or Israel, he has put people at risk in other Gulf nations by starting a war that it could not properly contain. The second part of his statement that I feel reflects is that the West is very concerned about the high-handed manner in which Donald Trump is now working around. In the case of Venezuela, they were kind of muted because they did not particularly like Maduro. They don't particularly like Ayatollah Khamenei as well, but they do not like how this has turned into a regular way of dealing with Trump's problem, to act first and then demand support from all his partners and alliance partners and basically people that he actually counts on as clout. So it tends to reflect very poorly on the nations he calls his very good partner, or very good coalition partner, or very good strategic partner. And on top of it, if you do not bow to him, like for Spain yesterday, or even UK, he starts hinting at trade wars all over again. So there is, of course, no matter what deal is inked, where we all know now that it is, even if the ink is dry on it, it is never quite firm, because whenever Donald Trump's line is not toed by his strategic partners or defense alliance partners, he will use that particular trade deal and yank the carpet right under from their feet. So they are not comfortable with how he operates without having a understanding with his partners. They want to be held as a partner, not as a vassal state that I do and you follow. Trump is not the mama duck, and the others don't have to follow him around quacking the same line that he is saying. So this is a universal frustration from the West that I see echoing through these statements. None of them support Iran. None of them want Iran to get nuclear weapons. None of them are actually mourning the death of Khamenei. What they're mourning is the complete breakdown of law and order. Even UN Charter supports Iran's right to defense right now under Article 51. This itself, the laws laid down by these very same nations, are being violated by Trump under intelligence that only he has privy to. And his statements, if you've seen for the past 2-3 days, and his Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth, all of them kind of wander. Some of them say that Israel wanted to strike first and it would have resulted in deaths to American assets or American soldiers because Iran had warned of the same, so we attacked with Israel first. Then they say Iran was building nuclear, but 8 months ago they were saying all the nuclear facilities are way down. It cannot be, it does not have the capability to do dirty bombs. So the problem is, there is no consistency in the line that they want to project to the people. They are unable to justify their actions. Nobody in the world supports what Khamenei was doing to its women, to its people, to its protesters. But nobody wants to support Trump in his high-handed actions. And Carney's statement is a reflection of the same.
And what do the reported US strikes on nearly 2,000 targets in Iran indicate about the current phase of the conflict, and how sustainable is this level of military action?
I would like to believe that 2,000 number, and I think it would be pretty much close to accurate. But what you need to understand is those 2,000 targets are not arrays, not the ballistic missile arrays. What has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours in Iran is that they've deployed a mosaic defense system. What does that mean? That means they have decentralized their command. They have separated into 31 smaller groups with individual commanders given a standard operating procedure and targets to hit. They have their kill list already. They already know what they're going to do, and they've been given the free will to do it. Now, when that is happening, when they are already aware of what they're supposed to do, IRGC has become something similar to what your Hamas Hezbollah is. 2 years of conflict in Gaza was unable to track down every single Hamas operative and end the conflict. It has become a similar situation with IRGC in Iran. When they separate into smaller groups, when they divide their ammunition, when they have their own objectives and kill lists, it will be impossible for America to go down from on top of the ground and shoot down at targets. 2,000 targets, sure, but a lot of them are moving vehicles with those ballistic missile launchers. They are moving targets. There are big assets that are being taken down. There is no doubt about it. The fact that they created a leadership vacuum, the fact that they created a power vacuum in Iran's top structure is the reason why this mosaic doctrine has been put in place. But its cost is now that they will have to track down every single one of those operating units and their byproducts, apart from the non-state actors, which are the ones causing chaos in the Middle East. And it is now a very expensive war. Every single missile dropped by the planes, by USA or Israel, is at least 10 times the cost of what Iran is using to hit them. So the cost variation is also very expensive for USA, and they have no choice but to finish this war as of now, because they cannot afford to backtrack. Otherwise, they'll have a long-lasting problem in the Middle East in the form of what Iran would be now, an irate power with access to military equipment and somewhat second-hand diplomatic immunity provided by Russia and China and US's own actions, which go against universal law. So why I was speaking at another panel the other day, and somebody in Israelis turned around, I'm not a very big fan of international law. It is laid by men and it can be violated by men. Well, that's exactly what has happened. It was the international law was laid down by men for men. It has been violated by those very same men who laid down that law that they expect the rest of the world to follow. So unfortunately, while those targets, the 2000 number looks big, its impact would be big, but the consequence of it would be that USA is having to pay a big price. I believe there are 6 lives that they have acknowledged that have been lost in the Middle East, and I cannot even presume to understand the amount of billion-dollar damage that their bases, their equipment, their assets, and casualties would come to reflect in the days to come.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you.